Hello, or I should say 同学们好，
I'm not sure I know what to say back.
老师好。
老师好.
Very good. So, I have an echo. Hopefully that gets rid of it. Okay, so what we did last week was start on stepping. And what I'd like to do today is let's do a little bit of warm up and then a little bit of standing. And then we'll review some of the stepping before we go on to waist movements. Okay? So for our warm-ups, stand shoulders width apart. Oh, and JP taught me a very cute way to figure out shoulders width apart. So if you put your heels together and make your feet at right angles, and then move on the balls of your foot, that's shoulders width apart. So the ways I used to do it was like measuring. You measure the outside of your shoulders and the outside of your feet, or you use your hands and match up, or some people use fist width. But this way you don't have to bend down or anything, right? So let's start with the top of the head, okay? Think about lifting the crown of your head, and then we're going to look left and right. And then we're going to tilt. And then as we move down, we're going to work on our shoulders. So forward and back. Hi, Maria. Forward and back. And then the other direction. Back and forward. Back and forward. And then we're going to loosen up our waists. So just swing, loosen up your waist. And this is where if you do not have very good balance, well, we'll do this first. We're going to turn one foot to the corner and then step forward the other foot. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're just going to go heel and ball. So heel and ball. Heel and ball. Heel and ball. And then the other side. Heel and ball. Heel and ball. Heel and ball. Other side. Now we're going to do the most elementary of hip opening exercises. So you're going to put your foot forward and you're going to have toe touch and then the other side of your foot. So one side, big toe, little toe. Big toe, little toe. Big toe, little toe. Other side, big toe, little toe. Big toe, little toe. Big toe, little toe. And this is another hip opening exercise, which if your balance is not very good, you should hold on to a chair or something. And what you're going to do is you're going to circle your knee. You're going to stand one foot facing the corner, and then you're going to raise and circle your knee. So circle your knee. And do the other side. Circle your knee. Now, the reason that was, it's important to make your crotch more flexible is that when we have bow stances, what you're doing is you have one foot toward the corner, and then the other foot is forward, shoulders width apart, and 60% in the front and 40 in the back. And the crotch exercises are to loosen your crotch so that you can keep your knee lined up with your toe on both feet. So very often, people who have very tight crotches tend to collapse the back knee. Okay, so you don't want to do that because that will injure your knee. So when you're in any kind of stance in Tai Chi, you should make sure that your knee lines up with your toe. So let's review the essentially 3 stances that we did last time. The first one is the bow stance. So your shoulders width apart. So you start with your feet together, move out. That's your bow stance. Then you make a bow stance by putting all your weight on one foot or enough weight on one foot so that you can pivot on the heel of the other foot so that it goes to the corner. Then you put all your weight on that foot and you move this foot forward. And then heel, ball, toe, bend knee. And you end up with 60% weight in the front and 40% weight in the back. And if you're doing a Tai Chi walk, what you would do is you would shift your weight back enough to release the front foot so that you can turn your heel to the corner. Then you're going to do a pass through. You're going to come in and out. Heel, ball, toe, bend knee. Come back. 45 degrees. Shift your weight to the front. All of it goes here so that you can pick up this one. Come through, step forward, and I'll do it sideways so that you can see better. So I am shoulders width apart. I turn my foot to the corner. I put all my weight on the back and I step forward. Heel, ball, toe, bend knee. And I make sure that I can still see my toes beyond my knee when I look down. So I'm wearing shoes that have laces. So my knee covers the laces, but I can still see the toe shoe. Okay. So then I come back just to release enough so I can pivot my heel. I turn to the corner. Then I come through and step shoulders width forward, heel, ball, toe, bend, knee. And keep going. Turn. So when I turn my foot, my hips go with it. And I am shifting my weight toward my toe direction. I come through and I step. Heel, ball, toe, bend, knee. When I come back, I turn. My hips go toward there. I move my weight toward there and I step. Heel, ball, toe, bend, knee. Turn, move, step through, heel, ball, toe, bend, knee. And last one. So one of the things that you should be aware of when you're stepping is when you look at it, people generally look at the forward foot, right? So I'm here, I turn this one, and I'm moving this one forward. And I want you not to think of bending knee here, but of pushing forward from the back. So I want the back to push forward because that's where your energy is. Your root is in the heel of the back foot and you're pushing forward. And what your front foot is doing is pushing back. So instead of allowing yourself to go there, what is happening is your front foot pushes back a little. So this is Deng Cheng, which is push and support. And this gives you a really stable root, right? So the important, and you can't have the stable root if your whole foot isn't on the ground. So sometimes when people go too far forward, they essentially lift their heel. You want your heel to stay on the ground when you come forward. So when they say to put your weight on the bubbling well, what they really mean is that you're going to put your whole foot on the ground, but slightly weighted forward. So slightly more on the ball of the foot than on the heel. Because you're bubbling well, you cannot actually put your weight on your bubbling well. Because if you think, if my hand is kind of like my foot, okay, if this is the ball of my foot, the bubbling well is just behind it. Okay, so it's like in the little hollow right behind your ball of your foot. But it's an acupuncture point, and the approximation of getting your foot on the bubbling well is to put your whole foot on the ground. Okay? So let's do one more line of bow stance walking, which we call Tai Chi walking. So you're starting off with your feet shoulders width apart, and you're turning one foot toward the corner, You're putting all your weight on that foot and then stepping straight up. The first step from so-called parallel stance, when both your feet are pointed straight, is straightforward. The next one, when you turn your foot and go toward the corner, you are going to pull in a little, pass through, and then step. And almost always you're going to do that little pass through before you step, because almost always you're wider than shoulder width apart. When you start, you're shoulder width apart. So that's almost the only time that you don't come in and out. And it's just a little bit in. It's just to stabilize yourself before you come forward. So you're here, you come back, go this way, all the weight is on the right. Step, and you're pushing off the back so that you have 60% in the front. You come back, pivot on the heel, you're turning toward that direction, you're pushing off the back, coming through, stepping, you're pushing off here, and getting your weight toward the front. Any questions on that one? Nope. Good. Okay, now let's talk about empty stance. Oh, one other thing is stride. I think we talked a little bit about stride last time. So just a review, stride is how forward do you step. Okay, if I'm here and I turn, how forward do I go? How forward I go depends on how low I stand. In other words, if I put all my weight on this foot and I come forward, I can only go this far. Why? You can only go as far as you can easily come back. Okay. If your stride is too long, what will happen is this. This is too long. I cannot easily come back. I have to push back in order to get back. Okay. So if I want to have a longer stride, I have to be lower. So before I showed you, I can only step this far. Okay. But if I sit lower, I can be this far and still come back, right? So the length of stride depends on how low you go. And as you develop leg strength, you can lengthen your stride. Okay, any questions? No? Okay, so when you are doing empty stance, your stride is actually approximately the same length. And the difference has to do with the orientation of your foot. So when I am here and well, let's see, I'm going this way. Okay, what is an empty stance? An empty stance is a stride where you have 45 degrees on the back and straight in the front. So when you had a bow stance, you had straight in the front that was shoulder width apart. Empty stance is also 45 on one side and straight in the front, but you're one line, two sides. That's the main difference. Okay. So if you have a bow stance, you're here, and it's 60-40. When you have an empty stance, it's one line, two sides, but most of the weight is on the back. See, in the bow stance, it's 60 in the front and 40 in the back. In empty stances, it's 70 in the back and 30 in the front. And there are two kinds of empty stances. There is a ball touch, which is the whole ball of your foot is on the ground. And there's a heel touch, where the whole heel of your foot is on the ground. But the majority of your weight is on the back. Okay, so ball touch, heel touch. And how do you get that 30% in the front? When you have a bow stance, your shoulder width, and essentially you're bending your knee and straightening out your back leg. And at the end, with 3 exceptions, you are leaning forward. Can you see from the base of my head to the heel of my foot? It's a line, right? And it's kind of slanted. In an empty stance, you also have a slant, but your slant is from your hips to the base of your skull. So you're here, and when I touch and I want to put the 30%, I bend from my hips. So most of my weight is still in the back. I have 30% in the front, and I get it by bending from my hip. Same with the heel touch. So when I have a heel touch, I touch, and then I put 30% on the whole heel by essentially bending at the hip crease. So empty stance, 30% and 30%. So the empty stance is generally kind of a positional stance. A bow stance is a forward stance in the sense that once you step forward and you shift your weight 60% toward the front, your body is moving forward. In the empty stances, you're not moving forward. You're either moving in or out from a center point. So if you are using a heel touch, the heel touch is more stable than the ball touch. And generally, the heel touch, you have more of it infield. So when you have raise hands and step forward, you're coming in. So, and your energy is going down your leg into the ground. So it's more stable. When you have a ball touch, you are kind of going out from your center. So like white crane. So here it's positional, but the hands balance each other off. One is up, one is down, right? Whereas when you have raised hands and step forward, they're both coming in. So when you have a heel touch, it's more stable, and your shoulders are generally more to the corner. And when you have a ball touch, your shoulders are generally more straight. So that's how you separate the two. Generally speaking, people just memorize which stance you're in when you make that particular move. Are there any questions on that? No? Okay, so I want to do a quick review of moving between stances. So when you're in a bow stance and you want to move forward, we did that, right? You moved back, you turned, and then you move all your weight here, you step through, and you go forward. But suppose you want to change direction. Suppose you're here and you want to make a 90-degree turn. What you do is you shift back and you turn this foot so it's parallel. So they're both toward the corner. Then you shift your weight to the left foot, pivot, and then step into your bow stance. And now you're 90 degrees from where you were. If you want to go back to where you were before, you come back, turn, feet parallel, front foot becomes the back foot, come in and step out. And there you have shifting 90 degrees from bow stance to bow stance. So let's do that one more time. So if I am bow stance toward you, and I want to do bow stance toward there, I come back, I turn, this becomes the back foot, I pick up this foot and come forward, heel, ball, toe, then knee. If I want to come back, I shift back, pivot, this becomes the back foot, and heel, ball, toe, bend, knee. The transition that footwork-wise is the most difficult for the bow stance is not so much when you're doing 90 degrees, because what we just did wasn't that hard. It's when you want to go 180 degrees. So if I am doing a bow stance that way, and I want to be going that way, what I do is I shift my weight to the back and then turn this foot 135 degrees, come back and step out. So to go back that way, I shift my weight to the right, I turn 135 degrees, I come back and step out. So if your hips are not flexible enough for you to make that 135 degrees, then you can always make some kind of accommodation. For example, if I am in a bow stance going that way, and I can only make it to 90 degrees, I can't make it all the way to 135 degrees. What Master Yang proposes you do is that you turn on the balls of both feet, and then step out. And the reason he proposes that is he likes you to have a stable back foot facing the corner before you step out. The other accommodation, which some people like, which is a different kind of adjustment, is suppose you're coming back and you can't make it to 135, you can only make it to 90. Then what some people do is they come back, step out, and then adjust at the end. Can you see that? So those are the two common ways of adjusting if you can't make it to 135. So those are the common direction changes for bow stance. For empty stance, we generally work, well, the main time we use an empty stance in stepping is as a transition. So if I have an empty stance and I want to change direction, what I would do, and this is a ball touch, I would change to a heel touch and pivot, and then make my empty stance. So whenever I'm changing direction, I'm pivoting on the heel. If I was on the heel, I pivot on the heel. If I was on the ball, I change to the heel and pivot on the heel. So you want to try that? So if you are here and you have, or if we go that way, okay. So if we're here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up and turn so that I'm toward the corner. Then I put the weight here and empty stance or empty stance. I have a choice at this point. Okay, and if I want to come back, what I do is I move to the heel, change to the corner, put the weight on this foot, and then empty stance here or empty stance ball. How's that? Yes.
Rita, whenever you turn, you always have to lean back because otherwise, you pivot, you always move your body back or you lean back.
You don't lean back.
Huh?
Okay. If you want to shift your weight back,
How do
you
shift?
essentially use your legs. Okay. So here, if I'm forward and I want to go back, what I do is this leg is straight, right? I'm in a bow stance. This leg is straighter and this leg is more bent. If I want to go back, I bend the back leg and make the front leg more straight. You see that? That's how I go back. I do not lean back.
You don't lean back.
Don't lean back. Think of
Don't-
it this way. If you were with an opponent, the moment you lean back, they push you over. Right?
Yes.
So you always lean forward. So here, how do you stay forward? You take it up in your legs.
Oh,
That's
you-
why your legs have to be strong. Okay? Your legs are what
you don't lean backward. You just your legs.
your
It's your
legs just move back and forth. You see, the angle from my hip to my head is the same during this whole time, right?
okay.
Right? I'm
Right.
not leaning backwards.
All right.
My legs are taking up all the difference.
You have to have strong knees.
You have to have strong thighs too and flexible hips. I mean, you know, I laugh when, when we started doing push hands, I say push hands is not push hands, it's push legs. You're moving your legs forward and backward.
Right.
Because think of it this way. When you do, since you know the beginning of the form, this is the opening, right? What does the opening do? The opening determines the pace of your form. Then when you do grasp the bird's tail and step out to your first bow stance, this determines the height of your form. So your body should be at this height, the whole form, except when you stand up or do low stance. So, for example, let's say you're doing cloud hands. Okay. When you're doing cloud hands, can you see my shoulders are at the same height as I'm moving across, right?
Right.
And it's all taken up in my legs. I am not going, right?
Yes, but that's a tendency.
That is the tendency.
The
That
tendency.
is the tendency. But you
Yeah.
have to resist that tendency.
Yes.
Okay, but that's why I wanted you to work on hip opening exercises, exercises to strengthen your legs. And standing. Remember when we were doing standing? Standing is a way of strengthening your legs. Okay. Usually in the old days, they made people stand for hours. But, for a beginner, even 3 minutes feels like a long time, And
It's a
what
lot.
does standing do for you? Standing, when you're doing standing, I want you to think of head up, shoulders down, elbows down, your chest reserved, rounded back. So what happens is all your energy goes from one arm around your back and out the other arm, right? And then you have knees in the same direction as your toes. And you want your back so that this part is straight, not like this. So your tailbone is down. So your backbone is straight. so that your energy can move freely from your legs out your fingers. So this is standing. This is the hug a tree shape. That is your reference shape. You should be able, so whenever you are trying to figure out what the position should be, you should use this as your reference, because that'll show you what your body shape should look like. And it has additional benefits. It helps you breathe better. If your standing is not over the bubbling well, if you're too far forward or too far back, can you see? You can be too far forward or too far back. In either of those positions, your breathing will be more difficult. And the reason is, if your feet are not over the bubbling well, you will tense up. And the moment you tense up, your breathing will not be free flowing. So having a good body shape, having good breathing, and what it does is it gives you a sense of stability, right? You have a sense of where the most stable position is. So when you move, you essentially move out of the most stable position. And, I was telling you in the first lesson about yin and yang. So one of the important parts of yin and yang in Tai Chi is the dynamic balance between agility and stability. Yes, you want to be stable, but yes, you also want to be agile, right? So how do you keep your body moving so that you are in turns stable and agile? And that takes strength. But the other thing that's good is it helps you balance. Question?
One more thing happens, I forget to breathe because you're so busy concentrating on.
Yes.
Then the breathing is uneven.
Yes. That's why we tell you to breathe naturally. In other words, people often try to think of, oh, I'm going to breathe when I come in, and I'm going to breathe out when I push out. But some movements don't go naturally that way. Grasp with squirrel's tail is an exception in that it works well that way. But some moves, the breathing in and out doesn't work in the same timing as you would normally have. So just breathe whichever way is natural for you. And breathing is very important because you cannot be relaxed if you don't breathe naturally, right? The moment you tense up, you're not going to breathe well. So usually the reasons people don't breathe well are that they tense up. Their mind gets in the way. And the other thing is posture. If your posture is not good, it's hard to breathe also. So, a lot of factors. So when you practice, do a little warm up to loosen up your joints, and then do standing. Standing will help you strengthen your legs and help your balance. And even if you do a few minutes a day, just add up a little more, and it'll help you a lot. Okay?
Standing up and hugging a tree for a minute or two.
Yeah. Stand and hug a tree. And try to work up to a little bit more time, a little bit more time, you know. If you're doing like 2 or 3 minutes, usually that's not so bad. Let's just do 3 minutes before we end the class, okay? So stand with your feet shoulder width apart, okay? Head up, tailbone down. Make a nice round hug a tree shape. Okay, shoulders down, elbows down. And let's just do 2 minutes. How about that? Okay, so starting now. Now you'll often find you have to do little readjustments. Make sure your head is up. Make sure your chest is in and back is rounded. Tailbone is down. Are your knees lined up with your feet? So just to give you a sense of, I don't have a very good sense of time. So just so that you would know, from the time we started, okay, we are almost at a minute. There, we just hit 1 minute. So let's do 1 more minute. And then we'll close class, okay? Don't forget to keep your head up. Stretch out your backbone. Tailbone down. Round your chest. Okay. We're approaching 2 minutes. There we are. 2 minutes. See, that wasn't so hard, right?
It's simple, but not easy.
That is most of Tai Chi. It's simple, but not easy. So I was originally going to start on waist, but we'll do that next time. Okay?
Okay.
So thank you very much for coming to class.
Thank you,
And
Rita.
I'll see you next time. 同学们再见。